Oh boy, buckle up for this story. Now we've got a story from the Intercept, Zed Jelani, with an excellent breaking news story. They got a hold of a memo that was delivered to the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the DCCC. Those are the establishment Democrats who are theoretically trying to recapture the House, but are usually too busy fighting progressive candidates. Well, they asked Greenberg, Quinlan, Rosner to research, to do analysis of the issue of healthcare. How's it going to play out? Should we run on it? What kind of healthcare policy should we run on? Should Democrats run on to get the House back? Well, that's a very important thing. And I don't mind them doing polling. That makes a lot of sense. I would want them to do polling. And they got veteran pollster Stan Greenberg, who's obviously part of that group, to do it. And I don't mind that either. I think he is normally good at his job. And we've learned a decent amount from his polls in the past. But the way they did this polling and so-called research and what their conclusions are is unfortunately, as usual, maddening. So let's go to a description overall. Jelani says the messaging handout obtained by the Intercept made clear where the party wants its candidates to stand when it comes to healthcare reform. Preferably nowhere, but certainly not with single-payer advocates. Now, I read that in the beginning, and I thought, well, are we taking a little bit of liberty here? Because that sounds pretty aggressive. Are you sure you got enough evidence to back that up? And the answer is, yes, I read the memo. That definitely backs it up. In fact, I'll share it with you. So let's do that. So they're gonna ask a question about healthcare. Now, there's a lot of different ways to ask that question. Hey, are you in favor of single payer or Medicare for all, or no? Just a public option, or just the Affordable Care Act, or just a tweak of the Affordable. There's a ton of ways to ask that question in a fair way, right? But instead, they did this. The question that Greenberg put before Democrats to make the case against single payer, though, is a highly unusual one. And the emphasis here is in the original document. If you could change one thing about your health care or health insurance, what would it be? The question was not about what kind of system the voter would prefer. But a surprising 12% still said they wanted their own insurance to be single payer. So I want you to understand why that's so skewed and what a preposterous way of asking that question. So if they ask you, if they even ask me, what would you like done with your health care? I don't know, I'd like to cost less and I'd like to have it cover more. That's the correct answers. But that doesn't tell you what policy position would get it to cost less and cover more. This is designed so that people don't say single payer. But 12% of people wrote in single payer anyway, even though it doesn't even make sense in context of answering that question. What would you like done to your health care? I'd like it to be cheaper, right? But no, they wrote in single payer. But then they turned around and said, you see, only 12% are in favor of single payer. Oh my, that is so fundamentally dishonest. Why did you do that? I mean, again, look, I don't think I'm biased against these people. I've quoted 1,000 Stan Greenberg polls in the past, and I thought he'd done a good job in the past. But this is done for an obvious political motive, and we're not anywhere near the worst of the memo yet. But hold, I want to show you a poll if you did this right, because others have. It's Pew Research Center did a poll. There's a lot of different ways they've asked this, and they've gotten the same answer almost every time over the last year. But one way of asking it is, do you want the federal government, do you think the federal government has responsibility to ensure healthcare coverage? Let's show you the results. So, and by the way, you could argue tilted against single payer, because the federal government has a responsibility to ensure healthcare coverage, right? 60% of Americans, yes, they do. 38% no. So huge win for universal health care coverage. By the way, Medicare for all, same exact number, 60%. So if you actually ask people, single payer, well above 50%. Ask it any way you like, except this way, which is designed to make sure that you get an answer that is against single payer. Gee, I wonder why the DCCC wanted it this way. Ask and ye shall receive. So then, they get to the part of what do they tell the candidates, Democratic candidates running against Republicans, what do you talk about when it comes to healthcare? Their overwhelming advice was attack the Republicans on their proposal. Then they got finally to, well, how about our policy? Shouldn't we have a policy? They're Democrats, of course not. But this is my favorite. The title of the part about the Democratic policy is this: proactive solutions, in brackets, only if asked. We didn't add that. That's in the original memo. In other words, never talk about your own policy positions unless someone asks you. Oh, ooh, you put me under the gun. Now I have to have a proposal. I have to try to actually come up with an idea that would help the American people. I just like to play politics. Oh, Trump bad, Republicans bad. Well, you tried that in 2016. How did it turn out for you? These are the worst. Okay, so what are their genius ideas if you are forced to talk about what your ideas are? By the way, if you never talk about progressive ideas, you shouldn't be surprised if the country didn't hear your side of the case and then agreed with the other side. In this case, we won anyway, despite the fact that the Democratic Party laid down on the job. Progressives are winning on this issue anyway. But constant unilateral surrender. All right, so here are their brilliant ideas if you ask them about it. They say we need the federal government to negotiate with drug companies to get a lower price on medications for people on Medicare, just as Veterans Affairs Department already does. This will save Americans $24 billion. So, in other words, we should negotiate with drug companies. Of course, that's the bare minimum. By the way, who prevented us from negotiating with drug companies? Originally, George W. Bush, and then after that, Barack Obama. So if you wanted us to negotiate with drug companies, there was one way you could have done it: when you had the president, you had the House, you had the Senate, and you had a supermajority. Oops. Okay, anyway, and that's the bare minimum. All right, let's go to point number 2. Increase the income threshold so more middle-class people qualify for tax breaks to reduce healthcare costs. You know what that is? Tax cuts. So not universal coverage, and not any of the progressive ideas, tax cuts. Point number 3, and this is the last one. We also need to require audits of insurance companies to reduce administrative costs. Are you kidding me? That's your brilliant idea? Reduce administrative costs? That's pathetic, man. Why don't you just, that is the most benign non-answer. In other words, I don't have any ideas. How about we reduce administrative costs? That doesn't offend anyone, right? That doesn't offend anyone. This party is the worst. This establishment is killing us. This is why we lose to Republicans over and over again. Because they won't fight for their ideas, because it's not their ideas, they don't give a damn. But that's the title of, hey, whatever you do, don't answer any questions about policy, was almost as bad as it gets. But wait till you see what they did to single payer and the rest of the memo. So, the Intercept explains, single payer does, however, pop up a number of times in the document under the banner, likely Republican lines of attack. So I read this. It's page after page of single payer is terrible, the Republicans will say. Here, I'll give you one example here. Heritage Foundation report says single payer healthcare will reduce the quality of care, limit access to care, and slow the rate of medical progress. Yes, that's what they said. They're a right-wing think tank, partly funded by pharmaceutical companies and health insurance companies. But what do we say? No, there was no positive talking points about single payer or any of the other so-called Democratic proposals. It was page after page of Republicans say single payer sucks. Remember, everybody, single payer sucks. Republicans say it sucks. And oh, one other thing, Bernie Sanders sucks. More than half the headlines was Bernie Sanders' single payer idea is terrible. So here's some more headlines from the memo. And they're quoting articles that smear either single payer or Bernie Sanders. How is this a Democratic talking point? Okay, millions would lose their health insurance under a single-payer healthcare plan. Again, this is not the Republicans, this is the Democrats' talking points. They're saying, this is what the Republicans are gonna say. So whatever you do, don't be in favor of single payer. All right, here's more. Washington Post fact checker, Sanders' proposed bill that would have eliminated Medicare, Medicaid, Affordable Care Act state exchanges and divorced the Affordable Care Act tax credits, or diverted. Okay. Now, by the way, both of those last 2 headlines are wildly misleading. Why would single payer get rid of Medicare and Medicaid and Affordable Care Act? Because it would be a system that replaced them with universal health care coverage. So for example, if you did Medicare for all, they would turn around and go, they're against Medicaid. No, we did Medicare for everyone So you don't need Medicaid because now everyone's on Medicare, not just the old people who love it. People above the age of 65, Medicare polls at 77%. They love it. They don't have that poll in here. Okay, I can go on forever. And the other one, millions would lose their health insurance under a single-payer healthcare plan. Based on what? It is by definition universal coverage. Everyone gets it. These smear jobs by the right-wing attack machine, the Democratic memo puts to and sends to every Democratic candidate. Hey, remember everybody, single payer is terrible. Don't do it. They're the worst. Okay, back to this Greenberg memo. They say the American people overwhelmingly want Congress to improve the Affordable Care Act, not repeal it or replace it with something radically different. We need to offer reasonable solutions to improve the law instead of a massive overhaul. This memo is not directed to fight the Republicans. It's directed to fight Bernie Sanders and single payer. So radical overhaul, we already had that under Trump. So they're saying, now don't do that, but also don't do the other one that I just warned you about, page after page after page of what the Republicans say about you. Don't you dare do it. No, get back in line and do the Affordable Care Act, which by the way was a proposal initially from the Heritage Foundation. So look at that, the Democrats agreeing with the Heritage Foundation again. Look, I don't know if this is fair or not, but near the end of the article, the Intercept does point out, in a comment to the Intercept, Greenberg noted that Alan Quinlan, a partner at his firm, led the work on the poll. Okay. On the firm's website, Quinlan lists Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan as one of his former clients. Now, if they had done a fair poll and a fair memo and given that to Democratic candidates so they could defeat Republicans, then you question that he worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield, maybe it affected him, maybe it didn't. But you do this poll and this memo, and then you send it to every Democratic candidate in the country running for the House seats. No, they get to point out that you used to work for one of these companies, that you are now saying whatever you do, protect those companies and never ever do single payer. This is the miserable state of the Democratic Party. Support progressive candidates, support uncorrupted progressive candidates. Look, I do a show every night called Rebel Headquarters right after the Young Turks. I interview candidates that are associated and not associated with different progressive groups. We try to bring them all on at all the different levels. So support those guys. Do your own research in your own district, find a progressive candidate. One easy way is the Justice Democrats, because you are not allowed to be a Justice Democrat if you take corporate PAC money and serve these corporate interests. And they have a progressive platform that's deeply progressive. There's a lot of other wonderful groups, the PCCC, Democracy for America, Our Revolution. Go find those groups. But if you think that the Democratic Party is coming to save you or to serve you as a progressive, you have no idea what's happening inside the Democratic Party. Run for the hills and support real progressives so we can actually beat Republicans. All right, we'll have links for those groups down below in the description box. Go check them out for yourselves and get involved. If you want to get the whole Young Turks show every single day, become a member, tytnetwork.com/join. And once you do, you'll be saying,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
Or you might say,
I think it's weird.
Or you might say,
oops.
No, that won't be that one. It won't be that one. It'll be great, trust me. tytnetwork.com/join.